I was 12 when I had my feminist clique. I grew up in rural, conservative Pennsylvania, where we got the Monday off after Thanksgiving for the opening day of hunting season. There have been shotguns and rifles and locked gun cabinets in my parents' house for as long as I can remember. So I fully expected that when I turned 12, I would be able to take the hunter safety course and hunt with my dad. Turns out he had other ideas, which included girls don't hunt. Regardless of this fact, my parents raised me to believe I could be whatever I wanted and do whatever I wanted. They didn't even bat an eye when I said I wanted to play soccer on the men's team in high school, because we didn't have a women's team yet. My gender was not supposed to be a factor in my success. That didn't mean I didn't feel the inherent unfairness when I was sexually harassed by members of my team. I just didn't have a word for it yet. I thought that was just how life was supposed to be. When I arrived at college, I staged a protest at my first college Republicans meeting because I thought meeting outside to smoke a cigar was sexist, exclusionist, and patriarchal. I decided I was going to host my own meeting for those of us who were not interested in furthering stereotypes. It rained that night, so our meetings joined, but I made it clear from the beginning that I wasn't going to put up with the sexist, patriarchal bullshit the Republican Party was known for. It's probably why I'm a Democrat now. The true birth of my feminist self, the genesis of my feminist self, came when I was 25. It came because of the vagina monologues. What was once just a play to me became a movement. I finally had a word for that inherent unfairness I had been carrying around with me since I was 12, and it was feminism, with a capital F. For 6 years straight, I stood on stage yelling vagina, raising money for local organizations, and teaching the students on my campus about sexual assault prevention, feminism, and intersectionality. My life has been built around feminism and gender equity ever since. But why did it take me 25 years to figure this out? What history did I learn and internalize that led me to not be able to name what I had known since I was 12? This is Victoria Woodhull. Not as well known in the feminist movement, but does hold the title of first woman to run for president of the United States of America. Victoria has quite the history. She owned a brokerage firm on Wall Street, she ran a newspaper with her sister, and she was an advocate for free love, which is probably why she is less well known than Susan B. Anthony. Victoria refused to stick to the status quo. While she definitely believed that women were equal to men, she also believed that the current society they were living in could not be solved with suffrage. She was told to pipe down and focus on women, white upper-class women, getting the vote. I can bet that there's no one in this room who remembers a time when women didn't have the right to vote. That's exciting. But did it come at the cost of women of color who had stood on picket lines and advocated for a right that continued to be denied to them due to sexism and racism? It took another 40 years for the Civil Rights Act to be passed and voting laws to be enacted that allowed all of our citizens the right to vote and have a voice in our democracy. This is why the first wave of feminism, the birth of modern feminism, is still relevant today. We continue to talk about gender equity in government, and yet we have never elected a female president or vice president. If we continue to elect women at the rate we are heading now, we won't have parity in Congress until the 19th Amendment is over 150 years old. Alice Paul, who was jailed for her protests outside the White House and force-fed in prison advocating for the 19th Amendment, authored and lobbied for the Equal Rights Amendment, which states, "Equality of rights under the law shall not be abridged or denied by the United States or by any state on account of sex." Such a simple phrase, a no-brainer. Of course everyone should be equal under the law. The Equal Rights Amendment has come in front of Congress for every session since 1923. It failed ratification in 1982 and has since come in front of Congress every year since then. I was born in 1982, and we still don't have a constitutional amendment that says everyone is equal under the law. The ERA is one of the ways that the first wave of feminism and the second wave of feminism are connected. In the 1960s, when Gloria Steinem was going undercover at Playboy, a movement was happening. Discontent, or that lurking feeling of unfairness, was being pointed out, much to the chagrin of those who were benefiting from the current societal norms. So what happens next? In the second wave of feminism, there was the Equal Pay Act, abortion rights, more economic equality, Title IX, and more sexual freedom. But with that, the social ills of sexual assault, sexual harassment, and domestic violence were becoming a part of our society. Today, we continue to see our students talk about these things on college campuses. On the screen next to me is a conversation that happened on Yik Yak, an anonymous social media app, in February of this year. Under the guise of anonymous social media, it is easy to hurl insults at a group whose title is Feminists Working on Real Democracy. The stereotypes of anger, Nazism, feminism isn't the real world were trotted out. But it was the last two posts that disappointed me the most. Since when did one woman's success mean that the social, economic, and political equality of all the sexes was no longer needed? My own feminist genesis and feminist journey has been working to make feminism accessible to the students I work with on a regular basis. A lot of the time I'm preaching to the choir. These are the students that already go to the Women's Center, attend F-word meetings, or take WGS classes. Their journey into deeper feminist thought is amazing, and I am very blessed to be a part of it. It is the student, like the young man, who sat in my office and called his mom and asked her to come to the vagina monologues. He was terrified. He had no idea how she was going to react, and she was certainly surprised to hear the word vagina come out of his mouth. But with my support, he explained to her why he wanted her to be there and about his plans to become an advocate at our local women's shelter. This is only one story in the multitude. What I want more than anything is to add to those stories. Hillary Clinton, Beyonce, Sheryl Sandberg, Tina Fey, they have all added to the story of feminism. It is amazing to see women with voices as widespread as theirs speaking on behalf of the movement. What disheartens me and disappoints me is not only the feedback they got from the media, but from other feminists as well. This is where I see people turning away from the movement. We seem like we are disconnected, like there's only one right way to be a feminist. There is no ladder of oppression that says that one person's identities trump another's identities with how bad you have it. There is danger in this thought, though, as we see the excuse of inclusivity erase the salient identities of folks who are looking towards equality. We need to find a way to let everyone in without saying that there is a right or wrong way about the movement. We need to look at our society and look at our culture and figure out what needs to change. Even if you have never been affected by racism or sexism or any other ism, that doesn't mean that those inequalities don't exist. Recognizing that is the first step in moving towards eradicating those inequalities. The next place that I would like to see this happen is in the media and education. That means giving a platform to those who are working towards gender equality. Make sure that the education that you and your children are receiving is fair and equitable. Surround yourself with people who are focused and interested in gender equality, and you will see it more around you. I know that I have. Feminism is powerful. It is open to new ideas and new thinking. It is advocacy and parity. It is inclusive and intersectional. It is excited about new solutions, but cautious about those easy ones. It recognizes the pain that it has caused and works to make amendments. The feminism of Victoria Woodhull, Gloria Steinem, and Beyonce may all look different at first glance, but they are all connected. This is the evolution of our movement. For those of you who aren't ready to call yourselves feminist yet, I ask you to look at the inequalities around you, even if they're not affecting you. And then ask yourself, why not?